My name is Linda Carter. I'm 58, and I know two things very well: how to make a pot of chicken soup that heals what pride can't, and how to keep my voice steady when my heart wants to break. I raised my only child, Emily, mostly alone after her dad left. I worked double shifts, made Halloween costumes from thrift store curtains, and clapped at every school performance, even when she stood in the back row with her arms crossed and a frown on her face. I believed if I kept showing up, one day she'd understand what love looks like when it's tired and still tries. Last night, I brought dinner to my daughter's house because she'd hinted they were stretched, and I knew their fridge was more noise than food. I drove across town with soup in a still warm pot, cornbread wrapped in a dish towel, a salad, and a small envelope I slid under the napkins. When I texted that I was pulling into the driveway, her reply buzzed on my phone while the engine was still ticking. "Just leave it outside," she wrote. "Just leave it outside," like I was a delivery driver and not the woman who taught her to tie her shoes. So I did. I set the meal on the stoop, and I left the envelope right on top, flat, heavy for its size. Then I turned, walked back to my car, and listened to my own breath steady in my chest. This morning, at 6:12 a.m., someone knocked at my door like it hurt. I opened it to find my son-in-law, Jason, on his knees. His hands were shaking. His eyes were pink. He said my name once, soft as thread, "Linda," and when he lifted his head, I saw he was holding the envelope. What I had written inside would change everything. But here is where I leave you, for a moment, wondering what a mother might tuck into a letter after being told to just leave it outside. This is how we got there. The first time Emily made me feel small, she was 13 and taller than me by a half-inch she measured every week against the kitchen doorframe. We were standing in the grocery store checkout line with our carts full of regular life: milk, dish soap, bananas, a frozen pizza we both pretended was for a busy night. She stared at my uniform, dark blue polo, name tag, then at the woman behind us in heels and perfume, and Emily said, "Do you have to wear that everywhere?" The words were light as a joke, but her eyes weren't. I smiled and said, "No, kiddo, just to the job that keeps those pizza slices hot." She rolled her eyes, and the cashier looked away. It was small, but it lodged somewhere inside me, the way a tiny stone can sit in your shoe for miles. Years passed. There were honors classes, then a state college, then a boyfriend who seemed gentle. He held doors for Emily and asked me for my casserole recipe. Jason was a good talker. He had plans, an app he swore would disrupt something I'd never heard of, and a handshake that felt like a promise he'd keep. They married in a park under maple leaves like confetti. I brought my best smile and a lace dress that was too tight in the sleeves. During the father-daughter dance, Emily cried into the shoulder of the uncle who stepped in. At the reception, she hugged me and said I was the reason she understood what resilience meant. I held on to those words like a ribbon you wrap around your wrist so you don't lose it. The first tiny crack in my belief came a year later when their apartment lease ended, and they couldn't quite pull it together to secure the new place. Could they crash with me for just a month? Of course, I said yes. My house is small, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, the same yellow kitchen I repainted 3 times because it never came out the right shade of sunny. They brought boxes and houseplants and shoes in baskets that multiplied like rabbits. Jason worked on the app. Emily took marketing gigs and posted photos on social media with captions about grind mode. I cooked, I tiptoed. I thought this is what family does. We make room. A month became 4. The word thanks grew thinner. If I came home late from the evening shift, I'd find dishes crusted in the sink and their laughter behind the closed door of my old bedroom. Once I knocked and asked gently about rent. Jason slid the door open an inch, smiled wide, and said, "We're right on the edge of something big, Linda. Soon I'll take care of all of us." I nodded because hope is easier to carry than confrontation. But when my hours were cut and I took a part-time morning cleaning job to keep the lights on, I noticed the way Emily looked at my hands, dry from bleach, and my heart flinched. Then Noah was born. My grandson arrived with hair like soft ink, and the loudest cry I'd ever heard. I held him like he was made of spun glass, chest swelling with a love so sharp it almost hurt. Love makes you forget. It made me forget how many times the garbage overflowed, and how often my own coffee mug was used as a paint water jar for Emily's crafts. I babysat for free. I learned bottle sizes by heart. I sang him the same song I sang to Emily when we were poor and hungry but together. After Noah turned 2, they moved out into a small rental on the other side of town. I helped them carry furniture up the steps. I brought over groceries and a welcome mat that said, "Home." I kept my thoughts soft. Sometimes kindness looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like soup. But shallow kindness is not the same as empathy, and the difference began to sting. Empathy listens. Empathy knocks. Kindness tossed like coins at a window does not feed anyone. It just makes noise. Our trouble ripened slowly, then all at once. It started with money. Of course it did, though I wish it hadn't. Jason's app never launched. He took a sales job he hated and returned each night with stories about people who didn't get it. Emily's posts grew grander while the floor under them gave a little. They bought a white leather couch on credit because clients might come by, and a designer lamp shaped like a question mark. When the landlord raised rent, Emily called me at 11:41 p.m., crying in a whisper, so she wouldn't wake Noah. "Mom, can you help this month? Just this once." I sent what I had saved for new tires. The next time, I sent what I had in the old cookie tin above my pantry. The third time, I said I couldn't, and I felt shame for saying it even though the numbers in my account didn't lie. Emily's voice turned thin and hard. "You always talk about family, Mom. This is your grandson." I swallowed. "And I will always show up for him," I said. "But showing up isn't only money." The little slights started to show their bones. If I visited, Emily would glance at my shoes and ask if I could take them off in the hall. The floor scratches easily. Then she'd push my food into plastic containers before I'd taken a second bite. When friends were over, she introduced me as my mom. She's very sweet, in a tone that made sweet sound like simple. Someone joked about boomer Facebook recipes, and they all laughed. I heard my name less. I heard Mom, even less than that. One Sunday, she invited me to a backyard barbecue. Casual, she said, "Bring that cornbread everyone loves." I arrived early with the pan wrapped in a dish towel, the one with lemons that Noah liked to point at. As I walked up the driveway, I saw Emily through the kitchen window, head tipped close to her friends. The window was open, August air was thick, and I heard my daughter say, "She just doesn't get our vibe. We're doing something here. Sometimes I wish she'd just not come in." You know, the words hit me, then slipped past and hit again. I stood there holding warm bread and my breath. I almost turned back. Instead, I walked to the stoop and knocked. The friend looked over. Then Emily, who painted her face with a smile. So fast, I felt like I was watching a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat that had nothing inside. "Mom, so glad you're here," she sang. We set the cornbread down. People ate. Noah climbed my lap and asked if I brought the blue truck he liked. I had. For a while, joy wrapped itself around me, and I forgot everything else. By the end of the night, as I washed dishes no one wanted to wash, Jason came up behind me and put a hand on my shoulder. "We're lucky to have you, Linda," he said. He meant it, I think, but he said it the way you thank someone who watered the plants while you were gone. Nice, grateful, but not like I was part of the root. 2 weeks later, Emily texted about the rent again. It was more urgent this time. The landlord had sent a letter. I felt a flutter of old fear in my stomach, the fear of eviction notices and red bills, of the time I sold my ring for grocery money and never told anyone. I sat at my table and thought about kindness. Real kindness isn't quiet all the time. Sometimes it speaks. Sometimes it gives a boundary, so both sides can stop hurting each other. I called Emily. She didn't answer. A minute later, she texted, "Busy. Can you just bring dinner tonight? Please. We're swamped. Noah's been picky. Don't knock, we're on a call. Just leave it outside. Just leave it outside." There are 100 ways to say, "We don't need you inside." This was one of them. I could have gotten angry. I could have typed back something mean. Instead, I looked at the pot on my stove and then at the drawer where I kept my stationery. I wrote 3 pages. I wrote slowly, printing like a schoolgirl, because I wanted each letter to land. I wrote about the day I wrapped a scarf around a 2-year-old Emily so tight she complained because we had a long walk in the cold with no car, and the bus didn't come, and I was scared her ears would turn red. I wrote about how love looks different at 30 than it looks at 13, and how I was learning to love my grown daughter without hovering, without paying for everything, and without agreeing to be treated like a delivery person. I wrote that I would always show up for Noah and for their safety, but I would not be a footmat people wipe their shoes on before going somewhere they thought was cleaner. I wrote something else too, something I will not say yet, about a choice and a line and a date. Then I cooked. I added extra carrots, like Emily used to fish out with her fingers when she was small. I warmed cornbread and packed butter. I had shaped into a little heart with the back of a spoon. I tucked the letter into an envelope and slid it under a cloth napkin, so it would not blow away. I drove. It was raining, one of those soft, steady rains that makes everything look like it's inside a memory. I parked across the street because their driveway was full. 2 cars I didn't recognize, both nicer than mine. Through the living room curtains, I saw shapes moving, shadows of adults, a flash of Noah's pajamas, blue with rockets. I walked up the steps, set the bag down. For a second, I thought about sitting on the stoop and waiting, but the text had been clear, and I was done begging to be let in where I was not wanted. I took a photo on my phone, so they wouldn't say the food wasn't there. The bag sat like a small, polite visitor. On top, I placed the envelope. I stood there with my hand on it, the way you lay your palm on the back of a sleeping child, not to wake them, but to feel that they're breathing. The door opened an inch, just the inch a chain allows, and Emily's face appeared in the gap. Not a hello, not a smile, just a whisper. "We're on a call. Thanks. You can go." Her eyes flicked down, saw the envelope, then back up. If she wondered, she didn't show it. She closed the door. I walked back through the rain. In my car, I cried the way steam lifts from hot soup when you take the lid off. Quiet, constant, ordinary. Then I laughed once, a single sharp sound at the ceiling of the car, because I felt lighter than I had in months. There is a freedom that comes when you stop knocking. That night, I made tea. I sat in my small yellow kitchen and watched the clock move toward midnight. Then 1, then 2. I slept the way mothers sleep, light as if someone might call my name from the next room. At 6:12 a.m., the knock came, 3 hard raps that reached into my bones. I stood, my knees making the small complaint they make now, and went to the door. The porch light was still on. Jason was there, on his knees. Hair messy, no jacket. He held the envelope, now soft at the corners, his thumb pressed over my name like he wanted to push it back into paper. He looked up, and his voice was raw. "Linda." Behind him, the morning was the color of rainwater. Somewhere far off, a truck beeped as it backed up. Inside my house, the tea kettle began to hum. He opened his mouth to speak, and tires screeched at the end of my street, a car door slammed, and someone shouted my name like it belonged to them. The knock was not the last shock of the day. Jason's voice broke the heavy air, but before he could string his words into meaning, that car door slammed down the street. The sound was sharp, like a gunshot that echoed against the houses lined in my neighborhood. My head turned instinctively. A dark sedan, engine still humming, stood at the corner. The driver's door was flung open, and Emily, my daughter, was storming toward us. Her hair was wild, her steps quick, and her face was twisted with something that looked like panic. "Mom," she shouted, her voice carrying down the street. "What did you do?" Jason flinched as if the words were whips against his back. He tightened his grip on the envelope like it was his only shield. For a second, he looked at me, then back at her, and I saw something in his eyes. Fear, guilt, maybe both. Emily reached the porch, out of breath, her eyes darting between me and her husband on his knees. "Why is he here? Why is he kneeling?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Then she jabbed her finger toward the envelope. "What's in that letter?" The question wasn't just angry, it was desperate. And in that moment, I realized she hadn't even read it yet. Jason stood, shaky on his legs. "Emily, we need to talk." "No," she cut him off. "We don't need to talk. We need to leave. Right now." She reached for his arm, trying to pull him away from my porch. But Jason didn't move. He planted his feet, eyes locked on mine. "Linda, she has to know. She deserves to know what you wrote." Emily's face went pale, her grip loosening. For the first time, I saw cracks in her confidence. I swallowed hard, the morning air cold in my chest. My voice was calm, but steady. "Maybe both of you should come inside." Emily shook her head like I'd asked her to walk into fire. "No, whatever you wrote, Mom, it's poison. I know it." Jason's hands trembled as he lifted the envelope. His voice cracked. "It's not poison, Emily. It's the truth. And I can't keep lying anymore." The silence that followed was heavy enough to break bones. Then, as if on cue, Noah's cry echoed faintly from the back seat of the car at the corner. My grandson, confused, scared, awake too early, his small voice piercing through the tension like a bell. Emily froze, her eyes flicking toward the car. For a moment, her anger wavered, replaced by something rawer. Fear, guilt, maybe shame. And that was when the morning took a sharp, extreme turn, because Emily lunged for the envelope. Jason twisted away, holding it high, and in the struggle, the flap ripped open. A few folded bills slipped out, fluttering to the porch floor like autumn leaves. Emily gasped when she saw them, not because it was money, but because of what else slid out with it. A photograph. It landed face up at her feet. She looked down, and her knees buckled. Jason's face went white as chalk, and I stood frozen, my heart pounding, because that single photograph was the fuse to a truth I had been holding onto for far too long. The porch was silent, except for Noah's cries in the distance. Emily's hand shook as she bent down to pick up the picture, staring at it like it was a ghost. And then she whispered, barely audible, How did you get this?" Emily's hand trembled as she clutched the photograph. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her eyes darted from the picture to me, then to Jason, then back again, like her world was cracking open in places she didn't even know existed. Jason reached forward slowly, as if he were approaching a wild animal. "Emily, please. She knows. I couldn't keep it buried forever." "Shut up," Emily snapped, her voice hoarse. She pressed the photo against her chest, as if hiding it could erase what she'd seen. "You had no right. None of you had any right." I stood there, quiet, letting the storm rise between them. I knew this would come. I hadn't planned the exact moment. It's never neat, never tidy, but I knew one day the truth had to surface. And if it broke us, so be it. The porch creaked as Jason shifted his weight. Emily, he said softly, his voice shaking, we've been living a lie. And your mother, he glanced at me, his eyes red. Your mother wasn't trying to hurt us. She was trying to give us a chance to stop drowning in secrets. Emily spun toward him, her face flushed with fury. You don't get to act noble now, Jason. You think groveling on her porch makes you the victim? You think this makes you a better man? Jason flinched, his jaw tightening. He held up the torn envelope with the letter still half tucked inside. Read it, Emily. Just read it. Then tell me who's the victim here. Her breathing grew sharp, her chest rising and falling too fast. For a moment, I thought she might rip the paper into shreds without looking. But instead, her fingers shook as she slid the folded pages free. She glanced at me once, cold, sharp, as if daring me to stop her. I didn't move. Her eyes scanned the first lines. Her expression shifted, not to anger, but to disbelief. She read aloud, voice breaking. Love looks different at 30 than it does at 13. She stopped, swallowing hard, then read lower under her breath, just enough for Jason and me to catch fragments. Her lips formed the words, I will not be your doormat. I will not carry your debts, but I will carry the truth. And the truth is, her eyes froze on the last paragraph. The letter slipped from her hands. Jason caught it before it hit the ground, but Emily's knees buckled. She sank onto the porch steps, clutching the photograph with both hands, staring at it like it might burn her. Her voice came out small, almost like a child's. This isn't real. It can't be real. Jason lowered himself beside her, his voice gentler now. It is, Emily. It's been real for years. I just didn't have the courage to tell you. Emily shook her head violently, her hair falling in her face. No, you're lying. She's lying. Everyone's lying. Her words cut me, but I didn't flinch. I looked down at her, my daughter who once clung to my apron strings, who once believed every story I read to her before bed. Emily, I said softly, I wish it wasn't true. I wish you never had to know. But the man kneeling here, the man you married, he isn't who you thought he was. And the photograph proves it. Emily's eyes darted to Jason, wide and wet. Tell me it's not you in that picture. Jason didn't answer. He didn't need to. The silence screamed louder than words. Emily let out a sob, clutching the photo so tightly it crumpled. How could you? How could both of you keep this from me? Noah's cry carried again from the car, louder this time, like the universe itself was demanding to be heard. Emily pressed her palms over her face, rocking back and forth. Jason, still on the step beside her, finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. Because, Emily, the secret in that photo isn't just about me. It's about Noah, too. The air went still. My chest tightened. Emily's hands dropped slowly from her face, her eyes wide with terror. What do you mean about Noah? She whispered. And in that moment, the storm that had been brewing for years finally broke open. Emily's breath hitched as if her lungs had forgotten how to work. Her voice shook, sharp and fragile. Jason, what do you mean about Noah? Jason's hands trembled. He looked at me once, his eyes pleading, like he wanted me to take the burden from him. But I didn't. This wasn't my truth to spill, it was his. And if he loved Emily, he had to face it. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the porch floorboards like they held the words he couldn't find. Finally, he said it. Noah isn't just your son. Emily, he's not just ours. Jason's voice cracked, then steadied with a pain so raw it cut through the air. He's the proof of a night I can't undo, a night I've hidden from you since before he was born. Emily froze. The photo slipped from her fingers, fluttering onto the wooden step. Her hands shook as she picked it back up and stared at it. The picture was grainy, taken in the dim light of a bar. Jason sat at a table with a woman I knew Emily would recognize. A woman she had once called her best friend. Their faces were too close, his hand resting on the curve of her stomach in a way no friend's hand ever should. Emily's scream tore through the morning. No, she shoved the photo at him. This isn't real. It's some trick. Tell me it's not real. Jason's eyes glistened. He didn't reach for the photo. He didn't deny it. Instead, he whispered, "That night, it was before we were married, Emily. But I knew you. I knew I loved you. And I still. Don't you dare say you love me," she spat, her voice shaking so violently it echoed down the quiet street. "You betrayed me with her. And Noah," she cut herself off, choking on the words. I stepped closer, my heart breaking even as steel settled in my voice. "Emily, Noah is yours. That's not in question. But the photograph, the timing, it means the one you built your world with has been lying to you for years." Emily buried her face in her hands, rocking like a child lost in a nightmare. Her sobs came in sharp gasps, every breath jagged. Jason tried to reach for her, but she flinched away as though his touch was poison. From the corner, Noah's cries grew louder, piercing through the storm on my porch. His small voice called out, innocent, unaware of the weight pressing down on all of us. Emily suddenly stood, wiping at her face with trembling hands. "Get out," she hissed at Jason, her voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my sight." Jason's mouth opened, but no sound came. He stayed frozen, broken, holding the torn envelope in one hand and his shame in the other. Emily turned to me, then, her eyes swollen and red. "And you," she whispered, her voice barely holding. You knew this whole time." Her words cut deeper than knives. Because she was right, I had known. Not all of it, not every detail, but enough to piece the truth together. And I had chosen silence, thinking silence was kindness. I opened my mouth to explain, but she lifted her hand, stopping me cold. "Don't. Just don't." The porch was so silent. Now I could hear the hum of the street light still burning at the corner. And then the slam of the sedan's back door shattered it. Noah's cry stopped abruptly, replaced by a muffled gasp. Emily spun, her face draining of color. The back seat door was wide open. Noah was no longer in the car seat. Emily's scream ripped through the morning air. "Noah!" The street was empty. The silence turned to terror. And just like that, the story that began with a letter was about to spiral into a nightmare none of us could have imagined. Emily bolted down the porch steps barefoot, her screams ripping through the quiet morning. "Noah!" Her voice echoed down the street, bouncing off empty houses and startled curtains. I felt my chest clench so tight I couldn't breathe. My grandson gone. Jason stumbled after her, his face ashen. He was just in the car. I swear, Emily, I buckled him in myself. His words shook, every syllable dripping with panic. But Emily spun on him with fire in her eyes. "You let this happen. You're always letting things slip, Jason. You couldn't even keep your lies straight. And now you can't keep your son safe." The word son cracked in the air between them, heavy with the doubt the photograph had planted. Jason flinched, but before he could reply, I forced my legs to move. I ran past them toward the car. The door was wide open, the car seat empty, the belt dangling uselessly. I scanned the street, my heart hammering in my ears. The early morning was still, except for the faint rumble of a truck engine somewhere far off. My eyes caught a flash, something moving 2 houses down. A figure. "Over there!" I shouted, pointing. Emily and Jason whipped their heads in the same direction. A hooded person darted around the corner, something small bundled in their arms. Emily let out a scream that could have cracked glass. "Noah!" She sprinted, wild, reckless, her feet slapping against the pavement. Jason took off behind her, his breath ragged. I ran too, my knees protesting, but my heart pushing me forward. My mind raced. Who was that? Why would anyone take Noah? Then it hit me like ice water. The photo, the letter, the secret. This wasn't random. This was connected. The hooded figure disappeared into the alley between two houses. Emily reached it first, her voice breaking as she rounded the corner. Jason followed. By the time I stumbled in behind them, chest burning, the alley was empty. No figure. No Noah. Emily collapsed against the brick wall, clawing at her hair. He's gone. Oh God, he's gone. Jason spun in circles, his eyes wild. No, no, no. We'll find him. We'll find him. His voice cracked, desperation swallowing him whole. I forced myself to breathe, to think. My eyes scanned the ground. And then I saw it, lying on the damp concrete, half hidden by a trash bin. Noah's rocket-patterned pajama sleeve. Torn. I picked it up with trembling hands, my throat closing. I turned to Emily, who slid down the wall onto the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Jason stared at the sleeve like it was evidence of his own failure. This isn't random, I whispered, more to myself than to them. This was planned. Emily's tear-streaked face shot up, her eyes burning with rage. Planned? What are you talking about? Who would plan to take my baby? I held up the sleeve, my voice steady now, though my hands shook. Someone who knows the truth. Someone tied to that photograph. Jason's face went pale. He staggered back, clutching his head. No, no, she couldn't. Emily's eyes narrowed. Who, Jason? Who? The silence that followed was suffocating. Jason dropped his hands from his face, his eyes filling with a dread so deep it hollowed him. His voice cracked as he whispered the name. It was her. Emily blinked, her confusion giving way to horror. You don't mean? Jason nodded slowly, his lips trembling. Yes, the woman in the photograph. Your best friend. Emily's scream tore through the morning air, once more echoing into the empty streets. And in that moment, I knew we weren't just fighting betrayal anymore. We were at war with someone who wanted revenge of her own. Emily's scream faded into harsh sobs, her hands clutching her head as though she could squeeze away the truth. No, not her. Not Claire. The name hung in the air like a curse. Claire Matthews, Emily's best friend since grade school. The girl who sat cross-legged on my living room floor eating popsicles during summer breaks, who whispered secrets with my daughter under blankets, who I once drove to prom because her father forgot. I felt my stomach drop. Jason's face was twisted with guilt. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. I never thought she'd take it this far, he muttered, his voice hollow. Emily lunged at him, shoving her fists against his chest. You slept with her. You destroyed our family. And now she has my baby. Jason stumbled back, letting her strike until she collapsed against him in exhaustion, sobbing into his shirt. He didn't push her away. He just stood there, shaking like a man waiting for a punishment he knew was coming. I stepped forward, my voice firm. We don't have time for this. Noah is out there, and if Claire took him, then she's sending a message. We need to understand why, and fast. Emily lifted her tear-streaked face, her eyes burning. Why? Why? Isn't it obvious? She wants to destroy me the way you both destroyed me. She jabbed a finger at Jason, then at me. You kept this secret, Mom. And you, she glared at Jason, you gave her a piece of my life that never belonged to her. And now she's taken the only thing that matters. Her words sliced me open, but I didn't flinch. This wasn't the time for defense. Emily, I said softly, this isn't about blame anymore. This is about Noah. We can tear each other apart later, if we must. But right now, we need to think. Jason rubbed his face, his voice raw. Claire always wanted a family. She told me once she envied us. She envied you, Emily. She hated being second place in your life. I never thought she meant it literally, but maybe she thought Noah was hers in some twisted way. Emily's whole body shook. She's delusional. She's dangerous. I nodded, and that makes her predictable. If she thinks Noah belongs to her, she won't hide him in some stranger's car. She'll take him somewhere she feels safe, somewhere familiar. Jason's eyes widened with sudden realization. Her mother's cabin, by Lake Hope. She took me there once, years ago. No cell service, no neighbors. If she wanted to vanish with him, that's the place. Emily's face drained of color. That's 2 hours away. I tightened my grip on Noah's torn pajama sleeve, the fabric damp in my hand. My voice came out steady, stronger than I felt. Then we'd better leave now. Emily staggered to her feet, determination burning through her grief. Jason stood too, guilt heavy on his shoulders but resolve in his eyes. For once we were aligned, not as a broken family, not as betrayers and betrayed, but as 3 people desperate to save a child. But just as we turned toward the car, headlights swung onto the street. A black SUV crawled to a stop in front of us. The driver's window rolled down slowly, and a woman's face emerged from the shadows. Claire. Her smile was ice, her eyes locked on Emily. Looking for someone? And then, from the back seat, came the soft, muffled sound of Noah's cry. The sound of Noah's muffled cry pierced through the dawn air, like a knife. Emily staggered forward, her voice raw and broken. Noah. Claire leaned her elbow against the SUV's window frame, calm as if she were watching a play instead of holding someone else's child. Her blonde hair caught the dim light, and her smile was razor-sharp. Relax, Emily. He's fine. Better than fine, actually. He's with someone who actually understands what it means to love him. Emily's fists clenched at her sides. Her voice rose, cracked with rage. You call kidnapping love? Claire tilted her head, almost pitying. Kidnapping? No, Emily. Taking back what should have been mine isn't kidnapping. You always took everything, didn't you? The attention, the praise, the perfect daughter act. But you couldn't even see it, could you? That boy, your boy, he's proof you never really deserved Jason, or the life you built. He's mine as much as he is yours. Jason stepped forward, his face pale but determined. Claire, stop this. You're not thinking clearly. Give him back. You don't know what you're doing. Her eyes flashed with fury. Don't you dare talk down to me, Jason. You think I don't remember the promises you made that night? You told me I was special. You told me I was the only one who truly saw you. Emily turned on Jason with eyes that could burn through steel. Promises? Jason's throat bobbed. He didn't deny it. His silence was confession enough. Claire smirked. That's what I thought. She looked back at me, and for a moment, her expression softened. Linda, you're the only one who ever treated me like family. You know I'd take care of him. You know he'd never want for anything with me. My heart twisted. I saw flashes of Claire as a teenager, eating at my table, helping Emily with homework, calling me second mom. But now, her voice carried a jagged edge that made my blood run cold. I steadied my breath, forcing my voice to be calm. Claire, love doesn't mean stealing. Love doesn't mean revenge. Whatever happened between you and Jason, Noah had no say in it. He's a child. He deserves peace, not to be pulled into this mess. Claire's eyes flickered, just for a second, doubt sliding across her face. But then Noah whimpered again from the back seat, and she snapped back like a whip. He'll have peace with me, not with her, not with the woman who treats him like baggage, and certainly not with a liar like Jason. Emily stepped forward, trembling but fierce. If you love him, if you ever loved me, then don't do this. Don't hurt him to punish us. Claire's hand gripped the steering wheel tight. Her jaw clenched. You don't get it, Emily. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm correcting a mistake. Jason tried to edge closer to the SUV, his voice low and urgent. Claire, listen to me. Please. Don't. Suddenly, Claire slammed the car into gear. The engine roared. The SUV lurched forward a few feet, the tires screeching against the pavement. Emily screamed, lunging toward the car, but I yanked her back just in time. Don't! I shouted, holding her. She'll run you down. Claire rolled the window down further, her eyes glittering with something unhinged. You want him back, she hissed. Then come and get him. With that, she slammed her foot on the gas. The SUV tore down the street, Noah's cries fading with the roar of the engine. Emily collapsed to her knees on the asphalt, her voice breaking into a wail. Noah! Jason stood frozen, staring down the street, his hands shaking violently. She's going to the cabin, he muttered, his voice hollow. I know it. She wants us to follow her. I bent down, gripping Emily's shoulders as she sobbed into her hands. My own fear clawed at me, but I forced my voice to be steady. Then that's what we'll do. We're not letting her take him. Emily looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes burning now with a fire I hadn't seen in years. If she hurts him, Mom, I'll never forgive you. For keeping secrets. For any of this. Her words cut, but I didn't flinch. Then let's make sure she never gets the chance. Jason nodded, his jaw tightening. We'll end this at the cabin. The three of us piled into my old sedan, the engine coughing to life. As I gripped the wheel and pressed my foot down, I felt the weight of years of betrayal pressing against us. But above it all was a single burning truth. I would do anything to bring my grandson home. The road stretched ahead, the rising sun casting long shadows. And somewhere out there, Claire's SUV was carrying Noah deeper into a storm none of us were prepared for. This wouldn't just be a rescue. It would be a reckoning. The tires of my old sedan screeched as I pulled onto the highway, the sunrise casting streaks of orange across the asphalt. Emily sat in the passenger seat, her fists clenched so tight her knuckles had gone white. Jason was in the back, leaning forward, his elbows on his knees, his eyes glued to the faint taillights in the distance. That's her, he muttered. She's heading toward Lake Hope. I bet my life on it. Emily snapped, her voice like broken glass. You already bet our lives, Jason. You gambled with me, with Noah, and now with Claire. And look where it's gotten us. Jason flinched, but didn't argue. The truth was heavy enough without my daughter's rage adding to it. The car rattled as I pushed it harder than I had in years, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles matched Emily's. My thoughts raced faster than the car. Claire wasn't just driving. She was luring us. She wanted a showdown. She wanted the truth dragged out under her control. The road narrowed as the forest thickened, tall pines leaning over the highway like silent witnesses. The SUV's taillights grew closer, weaving through the curves. Emily leaned forward, her nails digging into the dashboard. Faster, Mom. Don't lose her. I won't, I said, my voice steady though my heart thudded against my ribs. Claire must have noticed us gaining ground because suddenly her SUV swerved across the center line, forcing a delivery truck coming the other way to slam its horn and skid to the side. Emily screamed, and Jason cursed, grabbing the back of my seat. She's trying to run us off. Jason shouted. I gritted my teeth, keeping the car steady, refusing to fall into her game. No, she's testing us. She wants to see how far we'll go. The SUV roared up a hill, then disappeared over the crest. My stomach dropped as we followed, the road dipping sharply. At the bottom, a narrow dirt road split off, leading deep into the woods. The SUV's dust cloud hung in the air like a signal. Jason pointed. That's it. She's going to the cabin. I swerved onto the dirt path, the sedan jolting over potholes, branches clawing at the windows. Emily held onto the handle above her door, her face pale but fierce. "If she hurts him," she whispered, her voice trembling with both terror and fury, "I'll kill her." The cabin appeared like a ghost in the trees, old, weathered, its windows dark. Claire's SUV sat crooked in the clearing, the engine still ticking. I slammed the brakes, gravel spraying under the tires. The three of us tumbled out of the car, hearts pounding, eyes locked on the cabin. The forest was so quiet it felt wrong, as if even the birds knew to stay away. Emily's voice broke the silence. "Noah, baby, it's Mommy." From inside the cabin came a muffled sound, Noah's cry. Emily bolted forward, but Jason grabbed her arm. "Wait, she wants us desperate. She could have locked the doors. She could have something worse planned." Emily tore her arm free, her eyes blazing. "He's my son. Do you think I care about her plan?" Jason looked at me, panic in his eyes. "Linda, what do we do?" I stared at the cabin, my heart pounding, my grandson's cries pulling me forward like a rope. My voice came out steady, colder than I'd ever heard myself. "We walk in. We end this, one way or another." Before either of them could respond, the cabin door creaked open. And there she was, Claire. She stood in the doorway, her hair tangled, her eyes wild, cradling Noah against her hip. His small arms reached toward us, his cheeks wet with tears. Claire's smile was eerie, too calm for the storm in front of her. "Welcome to the truth," she said softly. "Now let's see who really deserves him." The door swung wide, and with Noah still in her arms, she stepped back into the darkness of the cabin, leaving it open like an invitation. Emily screamed, "Noah!" and tried to rush forward, but I caught her wrist. My eyes never left the doorway. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was a trial, and only one of us was walking out with Noah. Emily thrashed against my grip, her voice sharp with panic. "Let me go, Mom. She has my baby." But I held on, locking eyes with her. "Listen to me, Emily. If you run in screaming, you'll spook her. She's unstable. We need to be smart or we risk Noah's life." Her face twisted with anguish, but she froze just long enough for Jason to step beside her. He looked at me, guilt etched deep into his features. "She's right. We need to be careful." Emily yanked her arm free, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Careful? Careful is what got us here." Her voice cracked, then fell to a whisper. "If anything happens to him, I swear I'll never forgive either of you." Before I could answer, Claire's voice drifted from the cabin, sing-song and eerie. "Tick-tock, Emily. He's getting tired. If you don't come inside, maybe I'll just rock him to sleep. Maybe he'll start calling me Mommy." Emily let out a strangled sob and lunged forward. Jason and I followed, our footsteps crunching on the gravel as we crossed the clearing. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp wood and dust. The light was dim, filtering through torn curtains. Claire stood in the center, Noah clutched tight against her chest. His little fists batted at her shoulder, his cheeks flushed from crying. Claire's eyes locked on Emily, sharp and burning. Finally, just us. No masks, no pretending. Emily's voice trembled. "Claire, please. You've known me my whole life. You know I'd never hurt you. But you're hurting me now, hurting Noah. Give him back." Claire laughed bitterly. "You'd never hurt me? Emily, you've been hurting me since we were 12. Every time you were chosen, I was overlooked. Every time you shined, I faded. And when Jason looked at you instead of me, her voice cracked, venom dripping from every word. That was the final cut. Jason stepped forward, his hands raised. "Claire, don't do this." That night meant nothing. I was drunk. I was stupid. But Noah, he's not your chance to rewrite the past. He's a child, not your revenge. Her eyes snapped to him, fury blazing. Don't you dare say, he's not mine. You don't know what it's like to wake up every day knowing I gave you everything, and you threw me away like trash. Emily's body shook with rage. He's my son. You'll never be his mother, no matter what you tell yourself. For a moment, the room was thick with silence, except for Noah's whimpering. Then Claire's lips curved into a cruel smile. Fine. If you think you deserve him more than me, then prove it. She gestured to the worn wooden table in the middle of the room. On it sat a kitchen knife, its blade catching the dim light. My stomach dropped. Claire, I said softly, my voice shaking but steady. Don't do this. She tilted her head. I'm not going to hurt him. But maybe one of you will hurt each other. Maybe then I'll see who really fights for him. Emily's face twisted in horror. You're insane. Claire clutched Noah tighter, rocking him, whispering in his ear. Shoo, baby. Mommy's here. Real mommy's here. That was it, the breaking point. Emily lunged forward, snatching the knife from the table, her hands trembling. Jason shouted, grabbing her wrist before she could do anything reckless. Emily, stop. This isn't the way. Claire's smile widened, as though she'd been waiting for this moment all along. Yes, fight for him. Show me who deserves him. The struggle between Emily and Jason grew desperate, the knife glinting between them. My heart thundered, as I realized how quickly this could end in blood. I stepped forward, my voice slicing through the chaos. Enough! The word boomed from my chest, startling even Claire. Emily froze, Jason's grip still tight on her wrist. Claire blinked, her smile faltering. I moved closer, every step deliberate, my eyes locked on hers. Claire, you want revenge? You already got it. You tore open wounds that may never heal. You dragged every secret into the light. But if you think stealing a child will fix the hole inside you, you're wrong. You'll only make it bigger. Her jaw trembled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. For the first time, she looked less like a villain and more like the broken girl who used to sit at my table. But just as I thought she might falter, her grip on Noah tightened. You don't get it, Linda. He's all I have left. I took one final step, my voice dropping to a whisper. No, Claire. He's all we have left. And if you love him at all, you'll put him down before you destroy him too. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then Noah let out a soft hiccup, his little hand reaching out, not for Claire, not for Emily, but toward me. Something in Claire shattered. Her face crumpled, her body shaking as she sobbed. Slowly, trembling, she lowered Noah into my arms. His warmth pressed against my chest, his cries softening. Emily collapsed to the floor, sobbing with relief. Jason sank against the wall, his head in his hands. Claire dropped to her knees, broken, whispering over and over, he was supposed to be mine. I held Noah tight, my tears falling into his soft hair. He's safe now, I whispered. He's safe. But even as I said it, I knew the war wasn't over. Secrets had been exposed. Betrayals laid bare. And though we had Noah back, the scars of this night would never fade. What happened next, what choices Emily would make, what punishment Claire would face, what redemption Jason could hope for, would decide whether this family could survive at all. And deep down, I knew forgiveness would be harder than any rescue. The sound of Noah's soft hiccups was the only thing anchoring me to the moment. His little arms wrapped around my neck, his cheek pressing into me, as though he knew I was his safe place. For a second, nothing else mattered. Not the betrayal, not the lies, not the wreckage of our family. He was alive. He was with me. The cabin appeared like a ghost in the trees, old, weathered, its windows dark. Claire's SUV sat crooked in the clearing, the engine still ticking. I slammed the brakes, gravel spraying under the tires. The three of us tumbled out of the car, hearts pounding, eyes locked on the cabin. The forest was so quiet it felt wrong, as if even the birds knew to stay away. Emily's voice broke the silence. "Noah, baby, it's Mommy." From inside the cabin came a muffled sound, Noah's cry. Emily bolted forward, but Jason grabbed her arm. "Wait, she wants us desperate. She could have locked the doors. She could have something worse planned." Emily tore her arm free, her eyes blazing. "He's my son. Do you think I care about her plan?" Jason looked at me, panic in his eyes. "Linda, what do we do?" I stared at the cabin, my heart pounding, my grandson's cries pulling me forward like a rope. My voice came out steady, colder than I'd ever heard myself. "We walk in. We end this, one way or another." Before either of them could respond, the cabin door creaked open. And there she was, Claire. She stood in the doorway, her hair tangled, her eyes wild, cradling Noah against her hip. His small arms reached toward us, his cheeks wet with tears. Claire's smile was eerie, too calm for the storm in front of her. "Welcome to the truth," she said softly. "Now let's see who really deserves him." The door swung wide, and with Noah still in her arms, she stepped back into the darkness of the cabin, leaving it open like an invitation. Emily screamed, "Noah!" and tried to rush forward, but I caught her wrist. My eyes never left the doorway. This wasn't just a rescue anymore. This was a trial, and only one of us was walking out with Noah. Emily thrashed against my grip, her voice sharp with panic. "Let me go, Mom. She has my baby." But I held on, locking eyes with her. "Listen to me, Emily. If you run in screaming, you'll spook her. She's unstable. We need to be smart or we risk Noah's life." Her face twisted with anguish, but she froze just long enough for Jason to step beside her. He looked at me, guilt etched deep into his features. "She's right. We need to be careful." Emily yanked her arm free, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Careful? Careful is what got us here." Her voice cracked, then fell to a whisper. "If anything happens to him, I swear I'll never forgive either of you." Before I could answer, Claire's voice drifted from the cabin, sing-song and eerie. "Tick-tock, Emily. He's getting tired. If you don't come inside, maybe I'll just rock him to sleep. Maybe he'll start calling me Mommy." Emily let out a strangled sob and lunged forward. Jason and I followed, our footsteps crunching on the gravel as we crossed the clearing. Inside, the cabin smelled of damp wood and dust. The light was dim, filtering through torn curtains. Claire stood in the center, Noah clutched tight against her chest. His little fists batted at her shoulder, his cheeks flushed from crying. Claire's eyes locked on Emily, sharp and burning. Finally, just us. No masks, no pretending. Emily's voice trembled. "Claire, please. You've known me my whole life. You know I'd never hurt you. But you're hurting me now, hurting Noah. Give him back." Claire laughed bitterly. "You'd never hurt me? Emily, you've been hurting me since we were 12. Every time you were chosen, I was overlooked. Every time you shined, I faded. And when Jason looked at you instead of me, her voice cracked, venom dripping from every word. That was the final cut. Jason stepped forward, his hands raised. "Claire, don't do this." That night meant nothing. I was drunk. I was stupid. But Noah, he's not your chance to rewrite the past. He's a child, not your revenge. Her eyes snapped to him, fury blazing. "Don't you dare say, he's not mine. You don't know what it's like to wake up every day knowing I gave you everything, and you threw me away like trash." Emily's body shook with rage. "He's my son. You'll never be his mother, no matter what you tell yourself." For a moment, the room was thick with silence, except for Noah's whimpering. Then Claire's lips curved into a cruel smile. "Fine. If you think you deserve him more than me, then prove it." She gestured to the worn wooden table in the middle of the room. On it sat a kitchen knife, its blade catching the dim light. My stomach dropped. Claire, I said softly, my voice shaking but steady. Don't do this. She tilted her head. I'm not going to hurt him. But maybe one of you will hurt each other. Maybe then I'll see who really fights for him. Emily's face twisted in horror. You're insane. Claire clutched Noah tighter, rocking him, whispering in his ear. Shoo, baby. Mommy's here. Real mommy's here. That was it, the breaking point. Emily lunged forward, snatching the knife from the table, her hands trembling. Jason shouted, grabbing her wrist before she could do anything reckless. Emily, stop. This isn't the way. Claire's smile widened, as though she'd been waiting for this moment all along. Yes, fight for him. Show me who deserves him. The struggle between Emily and Jason grew desperate, the knife glinting between them. My heart thundered, as I realized how quickly this could end in blood. I stepped forward, my voice slicing through the chaos. Enough! The word boomed from my chest, startling even Claire. Emily froze, Jason's grip still tight on her wrist. Claire blinked, her smile faltering. I moved closer, every step deliberate, my eyes locked on hers. Claire, you want revenge? You already got it. You tore open wounds that may never heal. You dragged every secret into the light. But if you think stealing a child will fix the hole inside you, you're wrong. You'll only make it bigger. Her jaw trembled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. For the first time, she looked less like a villain and more like the broken girl who used to sit at my table. But just as I thought she might falter, her grip on Noah tightened. You don't get it, Linda. He's all I have left. I took one final step, my voice dropping to a whisper. No, Claire. He's all we have left. And if you love him at all, you'll put him down before you destroy him too. For a moment, the room held its breath. Then Noah let out a soft hiccup, his little hand reaching out, not for Claire, not for Emily, but toward me. Something in Claire shattered. Her face crumpled, her body shaking as she sobbed. Slowly, trembling, she lowered Noah into my arms. His warmth pressed against my chest, his cries softening. Emily collapsed to the floor, sobbing with relief. Jason sank against the wall, his head in his hands. Claire dropped to her knees, broken, whispering over and over, he was supposed to be mine. I held Noah tight, my tears falling into his soft hair. He's safe now, I whispered. He's safe. But even as I said it, I knew the war wasn't over. Secrets had been exposed. Betrayals laid bare. And though we had Noah back, the scars of this night would never fade. What happened next, what choices Emily would make, what punishment Claire would face, what redemption Jason could hope for, would decide whether this family could survive at all. And deep down, I knew forgiveness would be harder than any rescue. The sound of Noah's soft hiccups was the only thing anchoring me to the moment. His little arms wrapped around my neck, his cheek pressing into me, as though he knew I was his safe place. For a second, nothing else mattered. Not the betrayal, not the lies, not the wreckage of our family. He was alive. He was with me.